about the school?
Sure.
Maybe introduce yourself as you do.
Yeah, I'm Theo. I'm a senior at ACS, and ACS is a democratically run alternative middle school and high school in Ithaca. So we've got like, how many students are in ACS now?
300?
300? Yeah, about 300 students, grades 6 through 12, and we have a democratic decision-making process, which basically means that all of the students and staff decide on important decisions to the school together. And there's a lot more to the school. We have a graduation by exhibition instead of graduating grades. So you, instead of, say, getting a numerical or alphabetical value for the work you do, you actually present the work you've done and get the value from that.
Public?
Yeah, it's pretty public exhibition.
It's a public school, so we do the same thing so far as finances and stuff as other schools.
Community-based.
Yeah, I guess that's a biggie.
We
Can you say something about that?
We're all about giving back to the community. We take 2 days out of the week, half of each day, to do projects where a lot of times it involves going into the community and volunteering and helping out, whatever it may be. Like each kid, like you could pick from a variety of things. It can be whatever you want to do. You can decide, hey, I want to intern, blah, 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 and you can do it. And it's just a really nice way to get active in the community. Pretty much the goal of the committee is to take care of the school. We have only we have 1 day janitor, 1 night janitor, and we work with them to do the jobs that they would normally do. We sweep, we mop, we take out the trash, we recycle, we put up signs about recycling and composting, we take out the compost, we tie up cardboard, we even stay after school sometimes and volunteer our work to help the janitor after school, and it's just a good way to give back to what you're doing at school and take responsibility for your actions, and makes you feel conscious about messing up your own school when you're the one that has to take care of it. So I really like it, and it's fun. So.
And I see folks in that committee. I'm not the staff rep to that committee, but one of the things that's really clearly, I don't know, I guess it's a culture of change. 10 years ago, I think we were throwing a lot of stuff away wherever that goes, some magical place. And we really tried to do tons of composting and tons of recycling and stuff. And the school district was using styrofoam plates, and a bunch of students did things like go to school board meetings with big plastic bags full of styrofoam plates and sort of gently put them on the floor in front of the school board and say, it's wrong to teach 4,000 people in our school district a day that you put food on this thing that leaks styrene, you use it for 5 minutes, and then you throw it away. And you start in kindergarten, you teach them that every day, and then in first grade you teach them it again, and by the time they're seniors, they know darn well that that's the way to go. And it's not the way to go. So the district switched to this compostable, almost cardboard-like trays called bagasse, I think, or something like that. And we've been using those for a while now in the district, and our school has been using them too. And one day I saw people sitting next to the compost bin where folks, when they're done with their lunch, they kind of do all the organic stuff and throw the bagasse thing in there, and the silverware goes in a tray. And they were sitting there, students, stacking these things up because they have those little, it's like a rectangular thing with pre-divisions in it. Does that ring a bell, sort of division? If you just throw them in there, you fill up a plastic bag this big in about 2 seconds. But if you stack them, you can put 300 in there. And they were stacking them all. I'm like, what are you guys doing? I said, we're stacking the trays down. I said, I got that. Well, why are you stacking the trays? And they said, save on the bags. So little things like that. Young folks can see things that someone like me, maybe it just would never occur to me. And just instantly make that change. Starting next week, we're going to make this giant weird leap to, we went from styrofoam to bagasse, and then we're going to go from bagasse to these things that you can reuse indefinitely, called plates. And to do that, though, is like, it's really going to be hard, because we have to sort of get into the kitchen in a way that we're not in the way of the other staff, because we can't hire more people because we don't have any money. So students are sort of taking shifts, a different group each day of the week, going in and running them through the Hobart, and learning the places in the kitchen that they all go and the techniques to make sure that they're done the right way so that we're not feeding dirty dishes to anybody. And that starts on Monday. So we'll sort of this gradual progression that allows us to get less and less wasteful, for instance. It's kind of cool. Somebody want to talk about Locavores a little more?
Yeah, so Theo mentioned committees and maintenance committee. Locavores is another committee that we have at our school. And a lot of the pictures here are related to Locavores. You saw the salad bar, that's a major focus of Locavores. So we have a farm, which are more pictures here, where people are actually growing vegetables and stuff, produce, for the salad bar. And then students are really active in getting it from the farm to the salad bar at our school and going through the whole process. Yeah.
And we make some stuff and sell it to get money so that we can either give
Yeah.
it back to the farm. What kind of
And
things do
last fall we had a sale, like a fruit, veggie stand after school, and we sold kale and carrots and lots of kale, and broccoli and
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts.
The great Brussels sprouts, yeah.
I don't know, another, just like how you were saying, there's like a lot of fundraising that goes into Locavores. Like, I think it's yearly, they have like, there's like a big pesto party, and
Yeah.
you just make like tons and tons of pesto in that year.
We made like 25 gallons of pesto last year,
Yeah.
with all basil that we grow on the farm.
Yeah, and so that's like, just like passing that around the community and like selling that to people is also a really great way of like getting the knowledge out there that there's like something going on. There's like an ecological movement to move towards like more nutritious food and more locally based food, and just help them out.
The way we did the 24 gallons of pesto, we did it in one night by using a Cuisinart-like thing, like a food processor-like thing that's this big around, that is owned by a local restaurant. And when students go to adults and say, can we use your kitchen, the adults listen more than if adults go to adults. I think young people get listened to. I'm not sure why. It's probably appropriate though. So the idea that if you're going to try and do something, you don't have to do it yourself is an important thing too, I think. So we get help from folks in lots of different ways. And one of the ways is like, you've got a lot of equipment in the kitchen, after 5 o'clock you don't use it, can we take over for an evening and just go nuts? And we found a restaurant that said, sure, we can do that, which made it kind of cool. What else? Youth Farm?
Sure. So my name's Reina, and I'm a sophomore in ECS, and this past summer I spent a majority of the summer working at the farm, which you're seeing a lot of pictures of, and it's called the Youth Farm Project, and essentially it was started as a way to get like youth in our community, from all over the community, not just from our school, involved in growing food for the community and for especially for schools. So like a majority of what we grow goes to our school, another elementary school which has a fresh fruits and vegetables snack program, and we supply them with carrots and beets and broccoli and all sorts of things in the fall, so that starting when they're really little, they're getting a taste of locally organic grown vegetables. And basically how the summer program works is, I think this summer there was like 25 youth, something like that.
Close to 30.
30.
Just under
So
30.
there's so in all different ages. I was 15, so I'm kind of on the younger scale, and then going up through college students who helped to kind of direct it. And every day we would meet, and we had like smaller crews that we'd get into, and your crew would have a job, and a lot of times it was weeding or trellising tomatoes,
Or weeding.
or weeding some more, or doing some more weeding,
Or
or
weeding.
harvesting garlic, all sorts of things. So, and it's just, I don't know, I think one of the great things is you really connect with people while you're like out in the field sweating and it's hot and you're tired, but like there's something really satisfying about the work, and you're able to really have a lot of conversations with people. So like I made a lot of really great new friends that I wouldn't have really met or connected, and I think that was
Any of them from not this school?
right, that aren't from my school. Some of them wish they were going to college or different things. So it's a great way for a bunch of different people to come together all working towards one like common goal.
And that grew out of just getting a hold of some, well actually the history of that was kind of interesting. We had a little teeny garden at our school that students ran, and the school got a bit of an addition put on it, and so the garden's now about 20 feet under a turnaround for a fire engine that was necessary to be put there by code. And so where we were starting to grow food on our little campus ended very abruptly. And since then, we're working on a new garden space. But that summer, I just went around to folks that grew food near our school, sort of in a ring around our town. How big is it thing?
30.
10 square miles?
Isn't it 10 square miles kind of every?
I don't know. But it's not a big city. It's a pretty, it's a city, but it's not a big city. And so, like relative to New Bedford, what do you think? A little smaller. Yeah, but not a lot smaller. So anyway, we went around to farmers that were in the area and just volunteered, about 12 of us for the summer, and worked just 2 half days, Thursday afternoons and Sunday mornings. And we said to the farmers, look, we're trying to get better food into our school. We're volunteering. We don't want to be paid. We don't want any food right now. But when it's harvest time, if you have extra food, call us and we'll glean it and we'll put it into the schools. And so we did that that first fall, and we got a lot of food. And about a month after that ended, a person came to me and said, your kids really mean it. Would not have happened because of me. In fact, I had gone to one of the major farmers that was involved, a guy named Chow, and I said to him, I've got students that are willing to work. And his answer to me was, I don't want you to do that. And I said, Chow, it's a win-win. You'll get labor, and my students will learn about where their food comes from, and they'll learn skills involved in growing food. Come on, man. He said, no, you don't understand. Everything I do requires time, and I'm highly skilled as a farmer, and I do not have time to teach people. If the same 3 people came consistently every day for months, then it would be worth my time. But if people are going to show up to volunteer once in a while, I'm going to lose in that bargain, and I can't afford to lose. I'm just barely making it. So I had asked him that a year before, and he said no. But because the students were out there working their butts off, they came to me and said, reconsideration. We'd really like these guys to be involved. And so they invited us to get involved with a hunk of land that they had and some infrastructure. We had a walk-in cooler. We had a well that was available to us. We had some deer fencing and junk like that. So it kind of grew out of nothing based on young people jumping in and just actually, whether it was raining or 110 degrees, out in the field trying to do some work. It was kind of cool. Could one of you talk a little bit about the history of the salad bar? Sort of how students were involved with that, Locavores first, and then a senior project. Anybody feel comfortable doing that?
I guess
Zoe, you want to jump in a little bit?
So I guess it wasn't really last year that they started. I guess the year before last, students in Locavores started trying to organize how to get a salad bar in our school. But last year we really picked up the pace and went to a local store, like Green Star, and she had made deals with people to try to get like rice and beans from local
Chickpeas.
Oh yeah, chickpeas from local businesses, and so.
And then segue, and so
Yeah.
this is interesting to me because it took us almost 3 years to get a damn salad bar going in our school. And to me, that's crazy. That, it's like a salad bar. You put out some stuff and people can have a bowl and they put salad in it. But because it was, our school is part of a USDA free and reduced lunch subsidy program, because of the economics involved. And this isn't a salad bar that's part of a meal. The whole strategy was to do it instead of a regular school meal. Again, looking at type 2 diabetes and obesity. And so the idea was, can students at a public school, free lunch, reduced lunch, full price, or staff, can they say, oh, I got a choice today. I can either get the school lunch or I can do this other thing, which is in fact a full meal, but it's a salad meal. And so it's 32-ounce bowl, and you can put greens, and you can put brown rice, and black beans, and tofu, and chickpeas, and tons of vegetables, and homemade dressings, and cheese, and yada yada, and get full, but actually be more nutritious in it. And it turned out that we had to do all that, and it cost only $1, including a milk, bread, and a fruit, which is almost impossible. So it took a long time to get it together, and that was part of going to sort of places that were marketing food and trying to cut deals and so on. And ultimately it got pulled together by 3 high school seniors that took it on as a project. By the time you're seniors, you've learned a lot, and you're powerful. And they just said, we're going to make it happen. And so while we had pieces of that puzzle together for a while, they just took over what a lot of us, me included, had done lots of little background work on, and a lot of folks that are sitting here had done a lot of background work on, and they tied it together and made it happen, which is pretty cool. So probably about 60 people a day in our school choose that as their lunch now. Just kind of out of the probably 120, 140 meals that are sold a day per school, something like that. Teresa, would you talk about sort of getting in the kitchen?
Yeah. Okay, so 2 years ago I was involved with the cafe, so every day during lunch and like I guess I spent like maybe like 3 hours a day in the cafe at our school. I learned to prep food, cook food, learn about different machines that we use to like make cookies and I don't know, just a lot of different machines, and I learned how to I learned how to clean up after my friends and how to cut food and use the cash register to like actually like check people out when they got lunch. And it wasn't just for high school students, it's 6 through 12, so I was working with like, is it 6 through 12?
Yep.
Alright, I was working with like people that I normally wouldn't talk to, and so I made like a lot of friends that way. And the cafe uses some of the food, I think it's more now, but then we were using some of the food from the youth farm and the food that Locavores made for us, and we try to incorporate that into our school lunch so everyone can get organic, healthy, food into their lunch.
Well, to segue now, it was interesting because what Teresa was involved with, ultimately we were told that was illegal, that it was sort of child labor-like, and that the new business assistant superintendent for business services in our district, who is a very by-the-book woman, came in at some point and said, the kids are out of the cafe, they can't be in the kitchen, end of conversation, it's illegal, and walked out the door. And that was, about 2+ years ago? Yeah. And so we've been, so it's like, okay, that door got slammed in our face, what do we do about it? And we've very gradually been reopening it. So one of the ways was to talk parents into coming in and doing projects with students in the cafe. So the kids are supervised and they're in there for shorter periods of time. And so now we have folks learning all those things, food prep and how to do machines this way and the other, cleaning up, et cetera. I think right now we have 3 different projects that parents are leading by putting out emails and beating on doors and stuff and finding folks that actually are into it, which again builds community. Like you're saying, that 6 through 12, it's rare to have a 12th grader in a public school actually get to know fairly well someone that's, let's say, in 7th or 8th or 6th grade.
Also,
But it happens.
it really helps me like take on a leadership role. Even though like I wasn't a senior, I was just like 10th grade, and so I still like had to play like a good role model for like the little 6th graders and teach them things that I know how to do, but they necessarily don't. So it was really like student based and learning from each other and teaching each other.
One of those projects is a value added thing.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little, Ez?
Sure. I don't know. One of the projects that we're working on related to like locavores and stuff like that is basically trying to get a product with a set recipe and a product using stuff from the youth farm and so we can produce it on like a greater scale, and like using the profits from that, like the profits will go back into the salad bar and go back into the youth farm, and just like try to promote even more like local sustainable food that like gets more kids involved in terms of feeding.
What do you guys work on? You're working on a few different things, right?
Yeah, we've been working a lot on Pesto and salsa verde, just trying to perfect a recipe that people want to buy. So we've been making different recipes and adding.
Just honing it.
Yeah, just making it our own, and I think we're gonna
blind taste tests.
Yeah, we're gonna have something set up in the hallway so students can come by and just taste it and say which one they like most. Just sweet generally what the most popular one is.
And that's like an hour and a half of school each week with a parent.
Yeah.
And so it's parent volunteer, have to be a really good cook, and they're just messing around with it and getting it. And we got that idea at a conference last spring from a group in Buffalo, a program called the Mass Ave Project. And we're always trying to figure out, like a lot of things, education's not well funded, especially good education, and so you gotta find bucks. And that could be writing grants or something else. And we sat in on a presentation by some folks from Buffalo, inner city Buffalo, and they said, oh, we get $20,000 a year selling 3 products. And they had them there, and one was like a pre-chili, and one was a salsa. And you remember?
Yes.
And we said, what, $20,000 a year? And they said, yeah, these are our products. We grow the stuff, we make the products, it goes onto the shelves of Wegmans and supermarkets and stuff, and then we just get the profits. So that's kind of a win-win too, because that way young folks get to know how to run a business, essentially, get those skills that say, you know, how do you do something like that? Which is, for instance, as a teacher, I know nothing about that. But you guys are sort of partway down that road, which is kind of cool.
I just want to interrupt you. If like any of you guys have like questions or comments, also that would be cool if you want to chime in.
In fact, should we just stop talking and?
Well, I have one point that
Yeah.
you didn't touch on. At the youth farm, it was the weekend we would do this. We'd go out into the certain places in the community and actually sell some of our produce. So people,
Right.
not just the students, but like parents and just people who have no affiliation in the school could actually get good, nutritious food that was locally grown.
Yeah, actually, one that you guys may not know about is we have Ann from the farm and Katie are gonna volunteer. We're doing this kale thing. Do any of you guys ever eat kale chips? Are they, what do you think? They're weird, but good.
No, they're great.
Yeah, and so it turns out, for whatever reason, the thing that's pictured, that's the farm pictures, that soil grows kale like crazy. So we're going to do this great Kale Mania project where we found 2 places in town that will sell, as long as we have a health department approved label and we vacuum seal plastic bags, they'll sell kale chips. So we're going to do, we have this big convection oven in our kitchen that takes like 8 trays at a time. And so we're going to do a big, I think that could be worth some dollars. That'd be kind of cool. And get a whole bunch of folks involved.
I was just gonna say you can also do that with collard greens. And
Yep.
I think it's better than kale.
We can be in competition with ourselves. So let's stop telling stories and hear from other folks. Things that, questions about stuff that we left out that maybe you saw a picture of and like more detail on, or better yet, it's things that you've done that you're involved with that you think would be a good idea and might use a group brainstorm to think about how one might take a step in that direction as a youth. What do you think?
I also want to hear like what you guys' thoughts are on your lunch programs and like how they could be improved, because it's kind of lacking in a lot of schools.
Yeah, what do you guys think about wherever school is for you, the lunch stuff that is an option? What's that like for folks?
Mine is gross.
Is it?
It's like, it's good, but like, the value of it is like pretty upsetting. I go to Northfield Academy in Connecticut, and when you first walk in, there's one line, and you can make taco salad, which is just beef, nachos, cheese, tomatoes, lettuce, and not more nacho cheese, like sprinkled cheese, like pretty nasty. And then you move on, and it's pizza, and then that's just one line. Then across from there, they would have like actual cooked foods, but it's actually like more of food around it, just put into meals and makes it look fancy.
Yep.
And then we have a certain section for brownies, which are like the size of your hand, cookies, ice cream, and like chips. Then across, like there's a barrier kind of like a wall, and then that's where the salad bar is, but it's like as long as like from these 2 poles, and it's just like you can tell it's something that's from a bag. And I would like love it for it to be locally grown, so you like know where it came from and the conditions it was grown in, but it's just like a mystery. And then there's like at least 10 or 15 vending machines around it.
I went to an ag high school, so we had a bunch of greenhouses, and it was just in my senior year that they finally started getting like lettuce and various greens into because we had a salad bar already. It was a kind of crappy one, but it wasn't until my senior year that they actually started using some of the greens that we grew in one of our greenhouses. But it was just, to me, it's sometimes really disturbing how difficult and how red tape and bureaucratic it is to actually get locally grown food into a school system. It's just much more difficult than I thought it should be, especially if it's grown at the school in a greenhouse of all places like we have. So.
That's a telling story, yeah. It's right there and it took forever you can get it into the meal. It's crazy. How about other folks?
Yes, so I'm actually from New Bedford. I was born and raised here. And I grew up and went through the school system, K through 12, and the public schools really has a challenge on their hands with quality of the food. New Bedford doesn't have a big budget. They're basically, because it's the public school system, I'm sure you know it comes from property tax, basically, is how much money that we have to spend. So people are being taxed to death, and most people can't afford to pay that much because we have high poverty rate in New Bedford. So just budget in and of itself is lacking in funds, and when it comes to the meals, it's kind of like as cheap as you can possibly go, and nobody has really taken a strong initiative to produce locally grown foods in the urban areas.
Right.
And so I would really like to start looking into that. We do have a couple charter schools, and they've sought alternative methods, but they're still looking to private companies who do offer a little bit of a better meal, but still it's like, where does it come from? The quality's better, but it's not local. It's probably similar as far as preservatives and things like that go. And it's very costly. It's about $2 more a meal for the better quality meals than a regular lunch. And we do have a strong free lunch and reduced lunch presence in such a poor community. So I guess I'm wondering, I know that you guys ran into barriers there, and I guess just what were some of the steps that you took to overcome that?
You guys want to jump in with that?
We're still struggling. I don't know personally, I got upset this year. We went back to school this year and our lunch price got raised quite a bit, and at the same time the amount of food that we received got lowered. They started portioning it out, where on the calendar that they hand out each month it says, you get 1 ounce of pasta and blah blah blah, 1 cup, and it's like, that's not enough food for 5 hours through the day.
Yeah.
Kids need to eat. We're moving, constantly thinking. So it's definitely still a problem that we've struggled with, and we'll complain. I'll complain to my principal, and he says write a letter, But what's that gonna do? So, but by showing that, taking initiative and doing what we're doing, hopefully it'll finally make people say, oh wow, these kids are actually onto something, making a salad as big as a bowl can be, mounting it can be so much better, I think. I don't know if that answered the question.
A lot of it was especially with the salad bar, it was getting all the little details down, figuring out how much can we get away with and still fitting it within the price range,
right.
going from different local businesses, being trying to strike up a deal that'll work for us. And even now even now that we've gotten that done, there's still a bunch of improving to be done. I'm personally not happy with how school lunches, the regular school lunch is, but even recently, I've been seeing it getting better. There's been more youth farm produced vegetables in it, and they've recently had this hummus that I was very impressed with. I wasn't expecting to see that, and just there's been more raw vegetables that just haven't been destroyed, and it's good.
Yeah, I think that's to me one of the major problems still is that we get all these great vegetables from the farm, and then they go to our cook or also just cafe manager, and I just feel like he doesn't really have the skills to cook them in a way that's really tastes really good and makes people want to eat them. So I think one thing we're still trying to work on is teaching the people in the kitchen how to really use the vegetables in a way that it's not just mushy tasteless things which just end up getting composted, which is just kind of a waste of all the hard work we do to get it there. So.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, right now, the dream of the 3 seniors who just graduated last spring, who finally got this thing to start, this salad bar meal option, they were really disappointed with the way things ended up just before they graduated. We had been doing the salad bar for a month and a half or so, maybe 2 months. But the disappointment was that it wasn't all local, it wasn't all organic, it wasn't all perfect. That, you know, today when somebody goes and says, I'll take that meal instead of the regular school meal, you get this big bowl, and the first thing you put in it is a mixture that over half of which is iceberg lettuce. And for any of you guys that, you know what iceberg lettuce is? It's sort of packaged water, and you know, it probably comes from California, which is really stupid, and it's driven in a refrigerated truck all the way. It's just not good. And it's there because right now to get enough of the greens that are local organic is too expensive. But I feel like, and not that I'm right, but I feel like it's such a coup, it's such a success to say, look, we got it going, and there's, you know, it's homemade dressings. It tastes really, really good, and it's really filling. You know, the statistics right now coming out of the Centers for Disease Control say that if you're African American, you have a 50% chance of dying of type 2 diabetes. If you're a teenager, that's us. If you're white, it's a 1 in 3 chance. If you're Asian and Hispanic, it's somewhere between the two. It's horrific. You know, we should all be out in the streets screaming at adults. You know, like, what the hell is going on? So to get us, to just get it going. You know, like, it was so cool to hear that you guys have a salad bar as big as between those two. You know, even if it's stuff that you don't know where it comes from. I mean, that's like, at least it's something. So part of it is just getting it going, I think, and then saying, okay, can we hone it? And in there someplace are these win-wins, like, so, you know, if in fact a small garden in somebody's school can say, or a greenhouse produces some of the greens and it goes in there, then it's not just, oh, you know, maybe I'm learning to eat better food, it's affordable to me, I can dodge that type 2 diabetes bullet. But I'm also learning to grow stuff, and I can take pride in having some power in my community because a friend of mine grew that this summer at the school garden or whatever, you know. So those are those tendrils that can go out too. Go ahead, jump in.
Well, I had a question. So the prohibitive cost of getting all of the salad stuff locally. What I've heard about farm to school. I've worked at a farm where we were growing food and getting it into the schools, and the money for that food came from a grant from the government. And I was wondering if you guys know what are the barriers to accessibility to that? How much is that available in reality? And I guess if you don't have farms around you, obviously there's a barrier. But what else? Are there other requirements like for quantity, or where is there the disconnect?
I think it varies regionally. For us to get the youth farm food into the school, there was what on the surface looked like a really interesting program that we had to go through a BOCES, which is a regional educational facility consortium that was about 150 miles from us in Norwich, something like that, Norwich, New York. And when I called the person up, they said, you know, really what this is about is getting local foods into schools, but we don't want any, what's a good word for it, like cronyism. We don't want in a school someplace where the purchasing person in the kitchen knows their cousin's a farmer, and so they're getting a ton of tomatoes or whatever, and they're paying really premium price, and it's sort of benefiting themselves as well as trying to get good food in. It's like, no, we want this to be competitive so that the best food for the best price is what goes into the school. And so they sent a 17-page contract, and we went through it, and it was easy until I got to the page where it said, what are the $2 million insurance policies for liability that you have of the following 2 types, and what's your workers' compensation information? We don't have any. We're bozos. So I called them up and said, we're bozos. We can't do that. And they said, well, then you can't do it. And I said, but there's 4 acres of organic vegetables just across town. Why can't, and the kids grew it. There has to be a way to get it into the school. And spent 2 months going up the ladder of that organization until someone who was really familiar with the laws said, if you're growing it, if students are growing it, there are what I consider to be loopholes, but there are considerations of that in the writing of the law, and I'll get them for you, and I'll send them to your business manager. And as soon as she saw them, she said, cool, you're in. So part of it's persistence, I think.
Can I just throw in?
Sure.
I have a personal interest in urban gardening. It's something that I've been looking into over the past year, and I went out to Will Allen in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I did a weekend, kind of a weekend workshop out there. And I think requires a new way of looking at it, like growing local food. Is that yes, we have the farms, but and our latitude, we can't be out there in January harvesting fruits and vegetables. We have to be smarter about it. And he has a website, and if you're not familiar with him, it's really worthwhile looking into it if you're interested in this, because it's all containers. When I went out there, they're doing fish, they're doing tilapia, they've got a multi-tier where they've got hydroponics going on, they've got fish, all this, and they're growing produce that they can actually sell, and they give away to, because this was a food desert in Milwaukee, and he just came in there and they took over a basketball court. It's all built on concrete, and it's really a remarkable place.
He's a professional football, basketball player both, and he's like amazing.
He's a huge man. He's like over 7 feet tall, really close to 7 feet. He has really 2 bad knees. I think he's got 2, but he really believes in it. He lives and breathes this. But the thing is that he's looking at it from a different perspective, and I think that's the shift that we have to do. Is maybe we need to bring it and become local entrepreneurship as people coming in and using buildings as a way of producing things that are high quality that can be used year-round on a year-round basis. So, I mean, I love the work that you're doing, and I just felt that I wanted to share that, because there's somebody from New Bedford that mentioned it, and it's really hard because when I've been living here for almost 2 years, and I really had talks, but it's almost like people don't want to really get involved, because it does involve a lot of labor. As you well know, there's a lot of physical labor that's involved. There's a commitment of time and energy. So it's not something you can just dabble in. I mean, if you're a student and you're working through your grades, that's one thing, you're going to move on with your life. But if it's going to be a business, it really requires a commitment of time and energy and funding. And that's where, there's so many complicating issues, even the local government getting involved in supporting it. And then you've got the competition from the supermarkets that are in the area. They don't really want a mess. So there is this cooperativity instead of competition. I think we need to shift into cooperation. And I know that that's where y'all are coming from, but it's not the mainstream thought that people are thinking of. And the other thing is, the bottom line is cost. And good food costs. But I think Will Allen, and he just came out with a book this past May that sort of describes and gives his business practices, and it's a really good reference for kind of starting kind of a local, coming into cities and actually trying to think of how are we going to do this.
His site's called Growing Power?
You can it's growingpower.org, or you can just Google Will Allen. It's WILALLEN, and you'll get all kinds of information about it. Yeah, it's really worthwhile.
He's amazing.
He is amazing, yeah. And this guy created out of nothing. I mean,
That's a really important thing. One of the things that I think we need to say, I got into this by listening to a presentation a while back from a group very close to here in Boston called the Food Project. Has anyone heard of that?
yes.
And that's amazing. And they've got a budget of $2 million a year. They have 60 youth that they work with during, most of the summer, and then I think there's a core of 30 folks that work through the school year as well. And it's just everything about that program is thoughtful and smart. It's amazing. It's truly, truly, truly amazing.
Yes.
And it almost was so amazing that I never even started to try and do something, myself, because it was too much. It was too big. It was like, oh, I'll never get there. And I do think with Will Allen, he's so smart, and he's got what he does is almost impossible. So one of the drawbacks of, if you use models like that, one of the possible drawbacks is you look at them and you go, I can't do that. And so you never get going. I can never reach that level. And to me, I think that happens for me, just speaking personally, a lot. That if I want to go someplace and it looks like it's a big old mountain to climb and I know I can't do it right away, then I won't take the first steps. And I think that's a disempowering thing for all of us. And instead saying, I'll get lettuce in the meal. No, maybe I won't have full, I'll just do a piece, a little piece. And then you get that piece done and it goes, okay, I did something. And it actually worked and it was cool. And a couple of my friends thought it was cool too. So now it's not just me, it's a few of us. That, that when something looks so big that it's pretty impossible, that the money's not right and the food's too far away and nobody wants to do it with me, that sometimes so far as youth empowerment, youth-driven change, one individual stepping forward and saying, well, damn it, I'm going to put a desk in the hall and I'm going to say I want some lettuce in my salad next year that's decent and comes from someplace other than a valley in California, and then you can get that little step going, and that's how stuff I think does change. That's an important thing to remember, because the food project was wonderful to me, but it almost prevented me from even starting personally because it was just too wonderful. And this is kind of cool, but it's like, all little steps.
And the other thing is he didn't do it by himself.
Right.
He took the step to do it because of the food desert that existed where he was. And he started, but he didn't do it alone. And now it's a magnet. People come from all over the world to go there and take conferences and workshops and stuff like that. And his books really go into some details about how he did what he did. So, but he's been doing this for like 20 years, so that's the other thing is perspective. But even if you can just start hydroponically, start doing something, in a closed-in area and sort of transforming it, that sort of like gives you a little bit back for your, you have to have this kind of, for the energy, you have to get something back from it. And I think that's his bottom line too, is you don't just do it for nothing. You do it because you're thinking about this and you want to do a marketable, like you were saying, something you want to sell to the community, a product that you can use this money to come back into what you're doing, and that's what he did too.
Just want to say that the food project also has been around for about 20-something years, and so therefore it's not just, that's not how, it started up. And so to say I really applaud all the work that you're doing around this, and to think of like when you said the three youth who, whatever that they left, that they've graduated and whatever their dream was, and that they're kind of disenchanted by it, but to think of it as these longer term goals and with the steps that you guys put into place and kind of pass on to those after you and you're moving on. It's not that you didn't reach those goals, it's just that there's lines of people that we need to pass the baton to, and the bureaucracies that the obstacles that you're talking about just reminded me of having been working in a school, or having this relationship with this school, this after school program and summer program where they just started with these couple of nothing grand happened here. They started with their couple of raised beds, and they had cucumbers or whatever else they had, and at some point they were giving them away to myself and taking them home. And I asked, well, why aren't you using these with the students? And they said, oh, we're not allowed to. We were told it was legally we could not use these and feed them to the kids. We're allowed to take our big packaged, unrecognizable, who knows where it came from, vegetables and prep them with, but we're not allowed to use the ones that we grew because they don't know the conditions under which they grew.
We had a similar thing happen where a senior came running to me. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. Remember Sasha Paris? Any of you guys remember her at all? She graduated, 3 years ago, something like that? And she was flipping out because the head of food services, she was one of the folks that worked in that little garden that got buried, and she was totally into it. And she had just been told exactly the same thing, that, we can't use any of the food in the kitchen. And I said, calm down, Sasha, it's okay, that's too stupid. And while adults are stupid, that's too stupid. I'll work it out. And I went to the guy and he said, no, she's right, you can't use it. And I was like, so I worked with him, sort of, it's don't give up a little bit, and also don't get weird and pissed. So this guy, Dale McLean, was the food service director, and it was sort of like, okay, can you tell me what hoops I need to go through? Is there a certification? Just tell me, Dale, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. It may take me a while. If you tell me what to do, it'll get done. And then we'll get the food in, right? He said, absolutely, I'll get back to you. And a series of months went by until we were starting to plan the next spring, and I said, Dale, this isn't fair. You say no, and I say I'll do whatever you tell me, and then you don't come back to me. He said, I'll get back to you in a week. And I still have the email that he sent saying, never mind, I was wrong. It was just an impression he had, and it turns out there was no certification. Wow. It was totally fine. And now all the schools, I think pretty much every school in our district, there are 8 elementary schools? Something like that. Have something, raised bed, a little garden here, some bigger, some smaller, but it all, so some of that goes into the school food in each of those buildings. Even a tiny percentage is kind of cool.
What does ACS stand for?
the Lehman Alternative Community School.
Yeah, it's actually Lily's, yes.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
Lehman came
yeah.
from an old principal.
The
Lehman Alternative
Community School.
Thank you.
Alright, so we're from Fresh, and it's a nonprofit organic farm, and we have it on like, it's not really like school-based, like how you guys like actually bring it to your own school and you eat it yourselves. Like, we can't really share it like that, but we do give it out to the town, and we have like mobile markets and CSA shares, and like, it's like, see, you're happy about that, and that's how I was feeling towards like yours, so it's kind of weird. But like, you guys get to eat your own food, and your friends get to experience, and you get to be like, yeah, I did that. But like, to the people we're with, they're like, they don't really know what they have. Like with the mobile market, I mean, the CSA, they sign up for it, so they pay for it, and they like, all right, so this is good, and I'm gonna get it. But
You guys
the
know
mobile
what,
market,
everybody know what CSA is?
Community supported
Yeah.
agriculture.
So like, we just like harvest, and let's say like for lettuce, we'll harvest 45 heads of lettuce, and then like maybe 1.5 share or 2 and a full share, because like it depends on how much they want to pay for it, and then like just get it in bags, and then we have different stops, and they can pick it up, and then they pay for it annually. So for a mobile market, we just have like bins of sometimes a leftover, or we'll just like pick a couple of extra heads of lettuce and like sell it out. Kind of like just go to like low income places where they don't really know about the wholesale markets, and then they'll like look at the stuff and be like, oh, that's cool, and then just like walk away.
Yeah.
But they're willing to go to Walmart and get a bag of that iceberg when they can like eat that whole bag and it'll be considered a snack, because they won't even get full off of it. But like, if they were to make a good stew like we would make, like on Fridays we would make meals out of all of our shares or something, and like we get full off of it, and I'll go home and I'm still full. Like, I'll have to take a nap because I'm so full. But like, I guess they just don't really understand what they have, and that's like our job to try to like spread the idea that like the stuff you're eating is like crap, but we're trying to give it to you, and you're like being like really stubborn and hard-headed about not like taking it. And it's kind of like, that's why I'm like looking at you guys like, oh my god, I wish I could do that, but we don't really have enough food, or our schools won't even want it. Like, I'm basically begging my biology teacher to have a field trip just to our farm to see like what the food is made of, but he's like, I don't really want to eat dirty.
Don't give up.
But he's a science teacher. I don't get it.
Aziza, there are populations that within the mobile market. What populations would you say are receptive and excited to see the mobile market when it stops in those neighborhoods?
It's usually the hospital, but like they know health.
How about the elderly, don't you think?
Yeah, like well, I don't want to be racist, but it's like mostly like the Spanish people, because they love cooking. So like, they know what's good. They're like, oh my god, I gotta get a whole bag of those because I'm gonna put in my soup like once I get home. But like the other people, when they walk by, like, what was it? The first time we didn't even have a mobile market yet. We just had like a box of peas that we just picked, and we were like, all right, we'll just start with that. And there was like a couple of smokers outside of the health center, which is like so ironic. It was almost funny. And we were like, hey, you want to try some of our peas? And he was like, oh, well, I mean, they're free. So he walks over and he was like, I love these peas. He was being sarcastic, and I was like ready to punch him in the face. He didn't know like what it was, or like, you're smoking, like you're like throwing your life away, but then you're not even willing to try some green stuff, and it's obvious that's good for you, but he's just being pretty ignorant. So I just like erase him from my mind. But like, I guess like that's what we deal with a lot, and I can't help but get mad. I'm not gonna like show it though, because then we wouldn't get like profit from that. But like, I don't know, I feel like people don't understand the good in organic food, and I think because of that is because like organic food is so expensive. We have a market called Fiddleheads, and like, even every time I say it, they're like, oh yeah, that's that rich people place, right? Because like, if you were to get one of our shares of food, but like from them it might be like maybe $20, like $30. But like with us, how much would you say? Like 10, yeah, 10. And like the workers, we even get like our own food and bring it home. So I just wish people would like be more open-minded to their food, because they're eventually gonna die from McDonald's.
What you're doing sounds so great. Fresh. Gotta get there, okay.
I think going back to what you're saying, a huge issue with when you look at the broader issue of food in America, and how you were talking about the statistics with diabetes, and then when you look at trying to institute those foods in the school and they're like, oh, we don't know where that comes from, even though you don't really know where the other food's coming from. I think the issue is cultural, and that's why it's so hard to work when you're working in schools. I think also it's important to work fresh, because you're doing in the community, trying to get, people in the community to realize what good food really is, because we've kind of lost touch with what we are eating in this society. So it's important to make that change also happen in the community and at homes, and just as much as it is to get it in schools. And then one kind of lends to the other.
I'm with you. I'm thinking of a place where I was at a market somewhere, and this guy, he's a Native American guy, and he had a bunch of, anybody know what a kohlrabi is?
Yeah.
It's weird. It looks weird, it's like, what the heck do you do with that? And what he had was a little propane burner and a single burner and a skillet. And the guy was a salesman. He was really flying. But he had a place to chop it up, and he was chopping it up, and he had a little bit of salt, like sea salt, and oil. And he threw some oil in the pan. He'd take the kohlrabi, throw it in there, and kind of flip it, like he was really skilled. And then he'd throw it on a little paper plate and say, here, eat this. And it was like, that's good. I'll take 3. So there's, sometimes you can play that game a little bit. There's a woman whose name is Antonia Dimas, and she runs a program called Food is Elementary. And it's in, I think, over 1,000 schools in this country. And her whole theory is kind of what we're talking about right now, that if, especially at the elementary level, you get kids involved with food. So a lesson in her program might be walking into a 4th grade classroom, dividing the kids into groups of 3, and every group gets a little platter that has maybe 6 different kinds of whole foods. Colorful, different shapes, and a couple of small, relatively safe knives and something to cut on, and the kids get the platter and they all get arranged, and she gets them all quiet, and she says, okay, your job is to make a meal. And they immediately start saying, but what, how, who, and she goes, no, that's your job. And she refuses to say anything else, and then the kids play with it, and they cut it up in different shapes, and they arrange it in different colors, and then they get to eat, they show each other, and then they chow on it. And a little bit of that, when you're a little duper, makes it probably a little, like, okay, that's food, I remember that. But you're right, we got a long uphill climb because a lot of us forgot what that's about. We've been taught a lot, and we've been taught really well by large companies that, we eat this other stuff. And it is cultural, and it's also economic, and that's totally unfair. But it's there, so you got to deal with it.